Good day, everyone. I'm Tamron Hall. The News Nation is following developing news. Commanders in crisis. White House Press Secretary Jay Carney says the president has, quote, faith in his military and his top commander in Afghanistan, despite a brand new Pentagon inquiry into General John Allen in the last hour. We heard for the first time from the White House, the reaction anyway, to the new investigation into General Allen and the scandal still surrounding David Petraeus. Carney, for the most part, attempted to keep the White House out of the fray.
He has faith in General Allen, believes he's doing and has done an excellent job at ISAF, and I would refer you to the Pentagon for the process underway with regards to General Allen. The president was certainly surprised when he was informed about the situation regarding General Petraeus on Thursday. He greatly appreciates General Petraeus' remarkable service to his country. I think he's not going to make grand pronouncements or decisions about things based on, two situations, two individual cases. He's focused on the missions that the military is tasked with.
Okay, now let's look back at all that's happened in the last just 12 hours. The Pentagon is combing through 20 to 30,000 pages of documents belonging to General John Allen. Allen has denied any wrongdoing at this point. A U.S. official is the she called harassing emails from a then unknown sender sent off the initial FBI investigation. Well, emails that multiple law enforcement sources tell NBC were traced back to this woman, Paula Broadwell. You probably know her by now. She's admitted to an affair with David Petraeus. Well, last night, FBI agents searched Ms. Broadwell's home in North Carolina, the home she shares with her family. She had given them permission to go into the home. They took out boxes and apparently photos. And joining me now, Jim Frederick, international editor of Time magazine. And, Jim, I've heard people kind of joke about this and sex scandal and all of these salacious titles. But at the heart of this are some serious and legitimate concerns. The president, as you heard there from Jay Carney, not making any huge pronouncements, but just starting with General Allen here. These emails were exchanged allegedly over a 2-year span. His confirmation is being held up. That's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a huge deal. I mean, there's a lot of questions. The story is changing by the hour. Every hour there are new allegations. As pertains to General Allen, 20 to 30,000 pages worth of documents. At first, there were 20 to 30,000 emails. Yeah. We think that's not actually the case because it would be mathematically impossible. But just how much time is he spending as the commander of the war in Afghanistan emailing this woman? I think that is one of the central cases, one of the central issues to sort out is how distracted is this general from what is supposed to be his main topic, his main job, which is winning the war in Afghanistan. We've got all kinds of questions about intersecting jurisdictions between the FBI, the CIA, and the White House, and what did anybody know, and when did they know it?
And let's assume this general has kept his eye on the prize, his important job, of course, in Afghanistan. If all ducks are in the row, this still, again, delays the process of him moving forward on Thursday. He was supposed to appear in that hearing. So let's say the general is on the up and up, whatever indiscretion, allegedly, whatever. But the process is being held up here. What's supposed to happen on Thursday is not.
Right. I mean, at the very worst, it's a gigantic distraction. And even the distraction of the due process of a new commander taking over has national security implications because the entire military establishment is now ground to a halt. The new commander of NATO, that process is ground to a halt. I mean, it's at the worst, it's a gigantic distraction that, even Obama's, re-inauguration, everything that they're trying to accomplish in the lame duck session is been completely swamped by this.
And you have the president, or at least his spokesperson, having to reiterate that the president has faith in his military and his top commanders. He's having to say this in wake of these scandals.
Well, it's impossible that he could, because these are the two most highly regarded, best thought of generals of their generation. One of them is already gone, and the other one is teetering on the brink. So that has to make you wonder what he's thinking about his own chain of command, and where does this end? I think there's a lot of questions. Yes, he says that he has great faith in his commanders, but the two bright shining stars who are going to map the strategy for United States military strategy for the next 25 years, like I said, one is gone and one's teetering on the brink.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. Let me bring in and go back to the search at Paula Broadwell's home. Joining me now, and Jim, stick around with us, is Pete Williams. So, Pete, the question, at least last night when you saw the video come out of the FBI agents going into Paula Broadwell's home, I thought the investigation was complete, and this all started in the summer. Why last night, when they know cameras are staked out there, what would be left in that home from the summer that they needed to retrieve last night?
I think it's a negative thing where they just wanted to make sure there wasn't anything they'd overlooked. You know, they've been pretty careful, Tamron, about not saying that the investigation of Paula Broadwell was completely buttoned up. They were always careful to say that was in its final stages. And I think it's still, based on the people I've talked to, more than one official here, that that's still an accurate statement, and that they've pretty well concluded that there was no cyber offense, no cyber stalking, cyber intimidation, or any offense involving the emails that she sent to Jill Kelly in Tampa. What they want to make certain is the other part of this, which was questions about classified documents. Remember, when she was first interviewed by the FBI in September, she gave them her computer. They found classified documents on that. I think they later concluded they were low-level documents, schedules, that kind of thing. She may have had a legitimate access to them. But they want to make sure there are no other classified documents. And it was, as the term of art goes, a consensual search, meaning no search warrant. She gave them basically the key to her house and said, have at it.
Okay, so back to the question then, Pete. This investigation started in the summer, and we are supposed to believe that now here we are in November, and they're going back in to search for potentially classified documents. Where was the urgency, if at all, if this was a glimmer of a possibility? Why wouldn't they have gone back into her home before yesterday if they're looking for potentially classified documents or any remnants of something that could be classified?
Yeah, and I think the best answer to that, Tamron, is that now that this case is so high profile, with the whole world watching, they just want to make sure they're not missing anything. That's the best explanation I can give for this. I think there is some head scratching about it up here in some quarters of the Justice Department. It's a decision made by the prosecutors, I'm told, down in Tampa, who've always been handling the case, that they wanted to make sure they weren't missing it. It would be embarrassing to them if they button the case up and say, no harm here, everyone go home, and then something were to come out later that they missed. So I think that's the best way of putting it.
I want to play what Leon Panetta said last night. He had the pool reporters around him. He was asked about the information he's been privy to. Let's play it, please. Basically, Pete, I'm sorry, and I apologize for our audience, we don't have it. He was asked about, does he have answers to critical information? He said, at this point, I'm reading the papers like you are to determine just what the committee finds out. That you have Leon Panetta saying, I'm reading the papers just like everyone else. Pete, what's your reaction to that or information to that, to add to that?
Well, I think what he means is he's talking about in terms of General Petraeus, that part of the investigation. Obviously, the defense secretary is aware of what the findings were in terms of General Allen, because my understanding is the Justice Department notified the White House counsel's office last Friday of what they called a potential problem with the Allen nomination, knowing that there was going to be a confirmation hearing this week, and the Defense Department then took the steps to made it public last night, early this morning. So obviously he knows about that part of it. I assume he's talking about the Petraeus part and the decision not to inform Congress. And I think he also said in that interview that he believes that congressional committees should be kept fully informed. That, in other words, he's sort of giving his own opinion as a former CIA director, that if the FBI found out the CIA director was having an affair, then congressional committees should have been informed. But as you know, the Justice Department's view is that there's a very narrow rule about when you notify congressional committees of investigations, and they felt this didn't fit.
All right. Thank you very much, Pete. Great pleasure having you on with the latest information. And Jim, thank you as well. Let me bring in MSNBC military analyst General Barry McCaffrey. General, thank you so much for your time.
Good to be with you, Tamara.
Okay, so let me get your first reaction. I mean, yesterday we were still scratching our heads over General Petraeus. How could this happen? And you wake up this morning, General Allen now a part of an investigation. What's your reaction to this 1-2 punch?
Well, you know, General Petraeus, I've known him since he was 25. He's probably the most brilliant, effective commander we've produced since World War II. So it's a huge, damaging blow to U.S. national security to lose him in this position. He had to resign. You know, risk-taking behavior by the CIA director is probably unacceptable by anybody's book.
When you say risk-taking, what do you define that as? When you say risk-taking, is it the potential exposure of his emails? I mean, you're not talking about his personal life, right?
Well, you know, the CIA director gets a lifestyle polygraph. He has a security detachment with him 24 hours a day. His home is a command center. He's under intense scrutiny. So I'm sure that's why General Petraeus said he had to resign. It just wasn't acceptable. So off he goes. Now, the thing with General Allen beats me. 30,000 pages of material. Most academics don't produce that much volume during their career. So that one, we probably need to reserve judgment until the facts come out, and the DOD IG will get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely, and we can't stress that enough. In both of these situations, with Paula Broadwell, you've got the FBI going into her home, as Pete reported, making sure there's nothing there in her home that could be associated or linked to classified information. But our first read team, General, asked this question about confidence in the institutions. And when folks were asked who do they have confidence in, 74% say the military, 42% say the presidency, the Supreme Court 33%, and we know what they think of Congress. We've seen the approval rating of Congress be around 17%, I believe, in some of the polling. But the bottom line here, how concerned are you that there are people who will look at this and say, what's going on with our generals, and see it beyond an issue involving two individuals and something larger?
Well, Paul, Tamara, I wouldn't be at all concerned about it. Look, we got 56,000 killed and wounded in action fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. There's 2.4 million people in the Department of Defense. So I think these are shocking incidents, and people rightfully are unsettled. It's a personal tragedy for General Petraeus and his family, which makes me sad. But, you know, there's a bit of me that says, look, we just went through a presidential election, and neither candidate said one word about $7 billion a month in Afghanistan and 300 or more killed and wounded a month. So, you know, sometimes I wonder about America's sort of priorities and what we think is important.
Well, absolutely. And you have some people who say that this is a distraction from the fiscal cliff debate and a lot of other things. But do you believe, General, given what we know now and the answers that still must, I guess, at some point be presented, are there, though, legitimate questions regarding if there was emails or classified information, the volume alone that's alleged with General Allen? Are there legitimate questions that can still be placed without asking if our priorities are in line?
Oh, yeah. Look, there's no question. You have to hold people accountable for their actions in senior positions. Certainly in the armed forces, that's our rule 100% of the time. So, but again, let me go back to the basics. I think Petraeus is one of the most talented people we've produced in the country's history. He's been at war for 10 years. We needed him as a CIA director. I'm sad for him and his family and for the country we've lost him in this manner. General Allen, I don't understand that at all. I'm going to wait and see what the facts are.
Sure.
But very strange.
All right, General McCaffrey, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. And by the way, we are awaiting an update from the Pentagon, a briefing there, and we perhaps will have more information when that happens in about 2 or 3 minutes, I'm told. Well, tough love.